The whole Coltrane biographies is over here, but it's all bios, but Coltrane's by itself over there.
Okay.
And then black music, because that was such a huge part of my dissertation.
Yeah. What was the dissertation?
Here it is, man. Here it is right here, bro. Siobhan got this for me.
It's a beautiful thing.
It was on John Coltrane.
Yeah.
And, cosmology of the cosmology of the Congo.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I looked up the word.
Egun.
Yeah, ancestry. Yeah. I thought it was beautiful though when I looked it up.
It's mainly Yoruba word for
Yeah. When I looked it up, I was like, I didn't know, but then the definition of it.
Yeah. It's our blood ancestors.
This is wild.
Yeah, man. So that was beautiful. My attempt at. The goal was to create a new methodology to write about black musicians. Like, so if you're writing a biography about a musician, it won't follow that normal arc of child, phenom, poverty, father died, tragedy, rise to fame, and then, redemption. If not the hero arc that we see so many, it was like, how do you incorporate everything that came before them? How do you incorporate their family, their blood, all this other stuff to give, again, to really tease out who they were, you know what I mean? So that was the goal with that, man, so.
What's up, world? I'm Kamal DJ Mal Morel, DJ, entrepreneur, creator, and visionary from Philadelphia. I've always been driven by music, art, and culture and how they exist together, and it's always something that I wanted to show in my work. Along my journey as a creative, I've been introduced to incredible artists with unique stories. So I decided to shed some light on these amazing individuals who inspire me and who help to shape contemporary culture. This is In Concert. Dr. Anyabwile Love is a visionary, director, writer, and educator from Philly, blending culture and creativity to inspire and challenge. His work amplifies unheard voices through film, and it's an honor to have him on the In Concert Artist Series.
It would be best to just start off to talk about a little bit of your upbringing and how you have come to be what you are today.
I was born and raised in Philadelphia. Nice town, North Philly, and then uptown. Grew up in a kind of creative community. Family members weren't necessarily self-defined artists, but there was creativity around them, from the way that, the layout of our house, the design, the way my mom designed the house, the interior design of the house. My brother, Dexter, and my sister, Dee Dee, they would put on plays, more so dancing, but we would build sets and invite people into the house, and we would pull the curtains back and they would come out. And my aunt and uncles, they were huge. They were artists in their own. My uncle played the flute and other things. My aunt was to this day, she's just creative, They collected Ernie Barnes, like original, it was just that, man. And, I would only see those in like the Cosby Show and stuff like, but they were just cool in a certain kind of way in the 90s in particular, my whole life, but definitely when I became self-aware of who they were in a certain kind of way, it just imprinted on me. Going to public schools played a part as well. We had art teachers, we were talking about this earlier, but we still had art teachers who introduced us to a lot of different mediums when it came to art. And so they came with a very specific kind of agenda around Black students, which was to kind of pour into us as much as possible. And one of those ways were to pour the arts into us. So we had fabulous art teachers. And that was kind of the culmination, I guess, of how I began to look at creating. But it wasn't until probably grad school where I started realizing, even though I was in grad school for one thing, I wanted to do something else. And photography kind of started becoming the thing for me. And then I leaned more into the writing. It was something that I was kind of trained to do through grad school, but the creative writing was the way that I was leaning more so. And out of that, I realized, okay, this is something that makes sense to me. The structuring, storytelling, that's the craft that I'm learning more and more of.
How has being an educator influenced the work that you do?
I've kind of compartmentalized it, So I teach and then I create. Teaching is a form of creativity because I can bring certain things that I'm working on into the classroom, certain writers that I'm reading, James Baldwin, for instance, August Wilson, into the Black Studies courses. There's always that. The type of assignments that I give my students comes out of me being creative in a certain kind of way, an artist. So in one of my classes this semester, their final exam is just creating a zine, you know? And they're looking at me like, you want us just to cut some paper up? But what I want them to do is think around how we even receive and disseminate knowledge, you know? So that, in that way, not necessarily, I mean, I could easily just take up the whole class time and she's like, watch my movie, y'all, you know? Let's talk about, you know, my movie. But I kind of keep them, because I don't want it to become the thing. I love teaching, but I also don't want this other artistic side of me to come in. I want them to be separate, you know, and so they can have their own space in my head in terms of kind of compartmentalize them as well.
Doc, is there any specific sort of like ingredient to this whole recipe that is more, I don't want to say significant than any other, but I think that you know you need that one?
Absolutely. So I need to know how it ends. I'm not always committed to the end. It may change completely eventually, but when I'm writing, I need to know how the thing ends. Not necessarily the plot, but if it's a film, like visually, what is it going to look like at the end? With plays, it's like, what is the last thing that the character is going to say, maybe? And sometimes I get too enamored with that, but I've learned over time not to be too stuck with it, because I may need to deviate from that. The story begins to dictate something else. But for me, it's always, how does this thing end? If this is the thing that the audience is finally left with, it may not be as important as the rest of the piece, but that's the last thing that's going to be uttered. I know that's what I'm moving toward. This is for little black boys who bravely jump into the deep end of creeks on hot summer days, because private pools don't have payment plans, and the public ones don't have budgets long enough for summer breaks.
You mentioned that your work reaches forward to show a world where black people still exist. And that was really like a powerful statement to me. Can you just speak about what that looks like and how you do that?
Well, this nation that we live in, you know, trying to always kind of rid us out of the history, but also in the future. I mean, you know, and seeing us as essential to labor and other things, but not necessarily to have a full existence, you know. I would say the work of Octavia Butler and Samuel Delany informed me very early, thinking around black people in the future, because we just never really thought about it, you know. Two things. One, black existence is not just tragedy and reaction to horror, you know. Those things exist, but there's so much joy that we experience, not even just in response to those things, just by the nature of being human beings. There's joy that permeates through us. How do we encapsulate that? How do we take it serious enough to say, in the future, this will make sense as well in a certain kind of way? How do we tell the stories of our time now beyond just police brutality, beyond, but ever mindful of those things, you know? But also there has to be a remembering of, man, it just has to be a remember of how we exist, not in spite of, you know? But that's not the totality of who we are. And for me, that becomes so important when we think about the future. Are we creating kind of totems? Are we creating breadcrumbs? Are we leaving breadcrumbs? Are we passing the baton? Are we training our replacements to know what to do? And one of the ways that I see that is through the art that we make. And so my gaze, as so many of us talk about, is a black gaze. Like how do we see these things? You know, in relationship to other things, but how do we see these things? What's our ways of operating? What's the ways in which we exist? And not in this homogenous way. There's not one black way, you know? I mean, we all have black cards and we don't want to lose those things, but there's not one black way, you know? But mine is a contribution to the conversation.
It's really interesting to really think about how we do that without putting limits on ourselves based on how we see the world right now, you know?
I think the creative process is one of those ways where it can be boundless, you know? I mean, if you can imagine it, you know, you can create it, you know?
Is there a moment that you can pinpoint that lets you know that the journey that you were on as a writer, as a filmmaker, was the right path?
There's confirmation of it. I don't know if I've arrived at that yet, you know? My day job that I love, I think I was born to be a classroom teacher. You know, I teach Black Studies and History at the community college here in Philadelphia. I've been there since 2016. And there's never been a day I haven't looked forward to going to work to teach. There's other stuff I don't look forward to when I get there, but after we shot this first film, The Spaces in Between, there were so many technical problems in terms of being a director in the film, visually. but I was okay with it because I knew the story was strong. And that's what I was concerned with in this first short that we shot was, if a young black boy saw this, will he see himself and will he understand the story? And will the men from my generation remember themselves as young men and understand what I was trying to tell? And when I got that confirmation back from so many people, we showed it at the rec, right here in Brewery Town. And when those young folk looked at me, and when the old heads was coming up to me, I'm saying old head, but they were my age, like, oh, where you from? And in other words, they were saying, you must be from where we're from, because this is an outsider telling a story. I was good, but I'm also respectful of the art. I'm respectful of the mediums where I know there's a lot for me to learn. And so I don't mind asking questions. I don't mind bringing in people who are better at it, who've been at it longer than me. The validation from other folks saying this is good, and I'm okay with that, That was a confirmation in of itself. When folk asked me to do other things with them, when other writers who were going into directing or vice versa asked me to do certain things, that's when I knew, okay, I'm in this group, I'm in this cohort of people who are speaking a certain language, yeah.
If it seems like so much work goes into it and so much attention to detail, and it's almost like once you start, you can go down a rabbit hole of just like so many different things.
That's a great question, man. Yeah.
How do you it's almost like keep the genius contained in a way?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I'll say, I know we were talking earlier about my dissertation work, and one of the things I learned with dissertation, after a while you just have to stop reading, know you have enough, and then just start writing. And the scariest part was, have I read enough to start writing this thing, And you just have to trust yourself, trust your advisors, and so it's same thing. After a while, it's like, all right, you've done enough research. There'll be more, someone will know something else. Maybe that'll change, but you just gotta get to writing, and it comes to an end, And there's several stages, of course, before that. Like with The Invited, we sent it to a script doctor. Like, hey, can you trim the fat on this thing even more, But after a while, you just have to release it. And then the ultimate part is when you release it to the world, you don't even own it. I mean, you own the rights to it, but it's everybody else's interpretation at that point. I think that's the scariest thing. Like, did I do it in such a way that they understand what I'm trying to do? But that ain't the point of it. The point, they're gonna get from it what they need. There's gonna be certain things they're gonna be like, I see this is what they're doing. But I've learned that. It's not always easy, though. I've learned that because you know it. You watch the stuff you do, you see all the mistakes, you see other things that you wish you had more time for, more resources for, et cetera. But there is a moment I've learned it just has to get shut off.
I get where you're coming. I don't know if I found that connection just yet. I'm sure in time I will, but I can say now with some certainties that I am searching for truth. What you all are seeing on stage is that constant search.
I do want to ask about, as far as filmmaking influencers, or influences.
Yeah.
That kind of, this is who helped me sharpen my pen. This is who I watched to be like,
my homegirl Bianca White. She was the first filmmaker I knew. I didn't know black people. I mean, I knew Spike Lee, but I'm talking about people I knew. Yeah. She went to school for documentary filmmaking, and she was working on sets, and she was calling me, and I'm like, okay. So first Bianca, she was like, yo, you should start. She was one of the people, she's the person who got me in college, but she was also the person who was like, you should write, and this is how you write. You have to give a lot of details for film. Who am I without Spike Lee? In terms of his storytelling, we can be critical of it some kind of ways. He's admitted to certain things, hey man, I kind of dropped the ball. Sabine, I took an undergraduate class, black filmmaking, African filmmaking. Sabine, Black Girl was the first film I saw, and it just was like, oh, y'all doing something different, Holly Garima, when I, the Ethiopian filmmaker in DC, Bush Mama, amongst others, of course, Sankofa. Robert Townsend, man, Hollywood Shuffle, man, yeah. Because it was so in the zeitgeist, talking about how he made these movies on his credit cards, you know what I mean? And the promotion behind it was like, come see my movie so I can pay my credit cards off, But now I watch film more so, not just now, for the craft of it, And so folk will suggest things for me for a certain thing. Look at the way they did the lighting here. Look at this pool here, look at this things like that.
What does the soundtrack for Dr. Anya's work sound like?
Music is huge, first of all. So my soundtrack starts from the music of my parents, what they were listening to. For my father, it was Sam Cooke. It was other things. But Sam Cooke was the music he played for us when my father would get us on the weekend. For my mother, it was Saturday house cleaning music, man, where you didn't have any control over the music. And I hold that to this day. My son can't play music in the car and in the crib. I play the music, you know? But it was Stevie Wonder, man. It was reggae, you know, Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, which is always end up on any playlist generally I make now, you know? And then it was Luther Vandross and Anita Baker from my mom, Patti LaBelle as well. But then when I got older again, it became De La Soul, Native Tongues, Tribe Called Quest, all those cats. Just, I'm not who I am without those cats, you know? And I found my people in that group. But I listen to anything that's good. I don't even think there should be genres of music. I just think there should be good music, you know? So for me, the landscape would be that, you know? And so much of my writing is influenced by the randomness of the music that comes up on my playlist as well.
At this moment, do you feel like you're living in your purpose?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm talking about my purpose with my family, with my community, with my career, with the art that I create, with myself though, with myself, man. Like I think I'm walking in my purpose with myself. And maybe some of that comes with getting older. You just give zero fucks, you know what I mean? And so you don't have to deal with all that stuff, and you can really deal with the meat of the stuff that may still be messed up, but you can just carve that away, you know? But not all that other, you know. I'll say this, man, I've been telling my young folk that ask me for advice, you have to carry a pocket of like, don't give a fucks, because those voices will always be there to talk you out of stuff. I'm talking about like, and you can't care about like voiceless people, and I'm not talking about actual people. We create faceless and voiceless people that says like, it ain't gonna be good, you know? And I always wanted to get to the point where I didn't care, you know, where I had respect for a thing, but I didn't care about how, you know, and when I arrived there, it just opened up so much more for me to not be afraid. But I do think I'm walking in my purpose. I don't think I'm at the last chapter of it, not in terms of my life, but just in terms of realizing it all. But I think I'm on the path that I can't be really distracted in a certain kind of way from.
So Doc, what of your collection would you say your top 5 like most influential pieces have been?
Top 5, it always changes. I'll say nostalgically now, you know? So I'll start with Ntozake Shange's Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It's one of those books, I haven't read it in a while now, but it's one of those books I used to return to like every couple of years, you know? 2 Trains Running was my introduction to August Wilson, and I think I was enamored. I knew I was enamored ever since. I didn't even know he had other plays outside of Fences. I'm gonna put these together, that was 3, so this is 4. Everybody talks about Kindred, not everybody, but my first introduction was the Parables series, Parable of the Talents, Parable of the Sower, blew me away. Yeah, man, lastly I'll say this. Do I have it here? Yeah, I didn't have this edition of it. I had a paperback. My introduction to John Coltrane, of course, was his music, but when I fell in love with him, it was this book here, man, Chasing the Train by J.C. Thomas. But this was Chasing the Train by J.C. Thomas was vastly important.